Hello, this is Delroy Young. When we do impossible things that come, that's do impossible things that come. And I'm just here to define something. What is the kingdom of God? And how do we compare the kingdom of God against the kingdom of heaven? What is the difference between the kingdom of God and the kingdom of heaven? So I'm just gonna go through real quick, and we're gonna talk about this for a moment. What is the kingdom of God? And I had written an article in Do Impossible Things That Come. You go to Do Impossible Things That Come, and you click on definitions at the top. That's Delroy's definition at the top. You will see it in the list, and it's gonna be entitled "What is the Kingdom of God?" So, what is the kingdom of God? Your work can be your ministry. Your work can be your ministry. The kingdom of God is the heart of man in acceptance to God's will and the states of God's will as it concerns the heart of man. God's kingdom represents his reigning, and that reigning occurs within the heart of man, since that is the place where God will need to reign. In order for God to reign in the heart of man, his will must be accepted within that heart. This means that man's choice and decisions must be fully occupied by the will of God, and God's micromanagement of that man's thoughts must be happening consistently. There is no inconsistency with God. This kingdom that is called the heart of man must not be shared, because then one rulership would conflict with the other. A heart that is committed to God's will, heart that is committed to God's will must be fully committed in order for the power, the grace, and the miracles of God to occur. In other words, it must be fully committed. It cannot be a partial commitment. And I have here written in italics, it said, anything that can prevent you from experience God's grace will prevent you from experience God's grace. Nothing works with divinity if consistency is absent. In other words, divinity only works when there is a full commitment to divinity itself, and there is no inconsistency, there is no room, because once there is a room, a chain is stronger than the weakest link, and once there's any room for anything to come in and happen and to change the status of anything that is divinely consistent, then that is a problem. One have to understand that doing God's will works subjects you to warfare and attacks from the evil. Anytime you lose focus or take a pause from who you need to be or where your mind needs to be, that opens up an opportunity for you to be swayed and be led into temptation. When a person knows the will of God and fails to do it, it doesn't result in the spirit of prophecy, but the spirit of perversion rather. Consequently, we see an epidemic of false prophets who speak as their minds lead them to speak and not representing the will of God. The fact is that one cannot do God's will without knowing what is the will of God or what God's will is. If a person's heart is not selflessly yield to God, then God cannot communicate or work through such an individual. The kingdom of God is like an equal opportunity employment. Anyone who is willing to yield their life to God's will is qualified for Him to work through. In other words, you don't have to come dressed up in a jacket and tie. You can be looking just like I am right now. One do not need to sit around and wait for a church to appoint you to work for God. Your job could well be your ministry. The fact that you get paid from what you do for a living does not mean that you cannot have a heavenly reward also. Your job could well be your ministry. If you perform that job with excellency and strive to be better every day and do it to the will and to the glory of God. If your intent is to serve people with humility and humanity and to do your best at all times to help those who come before you, then that may be your ministry. You can turn your job into your ministry. So this whole point about, if you're gonna spend 8 hours doing something, you might as well, do it to the glory of God, because that's 8 hours on the job and another 2 hours preparing for the job. So you're inserting 10 hours every day out of your time, So why not? That's more than a quarter, more than a third of your day, almost a half of your day. So why not make it? Why make it a miserable experience? Why not just insert? You have to be comfortable. You have to be who you are. If you're gonna spend that much time, you need to be comfortable. If you have a God to praise and a God to glorify, and if you're gonna spend so much time on a 9 to 5, 8-hour job or 10-hour job, in my mind, you might as well do it to the glory of God, because that could well be your ministry. And don't think that it have to be something, it have to be like a position in the church that you hold, because a lot of people is out there, a lot of Christians are fighting to be to get promoted in the church, to be ministers, to be deacons, to be pastors, and to be whatever. And you have to be careful of that spirit, that conflicting spirit, that kind of warfare, that you're striving for higher place, and that's good. But remember now that this desire for power, this was what created a problem in heaven in the first place. Why the devil it cast out with a third of the angels that followed him, that would not do the right thing. So you have to be very careful of this. And the devil tends to want to put his personality within us, to demonize like the children of God, because there is a jealousy that he doesn't have the position that we have. So we have to be careful of that. So what I'm saying is glorification to God, it can be very simple, and we are making this out to be too much, to be too great. It doesn't have to be a position in the church, because anything you do, anything that you put your heart into and do it to the best of your knowledge and to the best of your ability, it's gonna glorify God. And that is what glorification is all about. That is what the kingdom of God is. It is to dwell within the heart of man. It's not a temple. Folks, let's get it right. I want to thank you so much. Read, submit to our program, submit to our network. Please join us, communicate with us. Let us talk together. Let us talk. Let us learn from each other, because that is what we're all about. And let us grow. Thank you so much. This is Delroy Young, and we do impossible things, doimpossiblethings.com.